Prepare to be mooned. In just a few days, a total eclipse will cast parts of the US, Canada, and Mexico in shadow. The area of Texas where I live is in the path of totality, which, by the way, sounds like an epic belief system to help you achieve complete enlightenment. Anyway, I thought now would be the perfect time to share 7 books that have something to do with the moon. They may take place on an alien moon, or use the moon as magic, or just have moon in the title. Join me as I take one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. First up is Moon of the Crusted Snow by Waubgeshig Rice.
To the moon. To the moon.
This is a low-key thriller that sees the beginning of the apocalypse through the eyes of a remote indigenous town in northern Ontario. The residents of this Anishinaabe community have lost so much in their history, including their traditional homeland. They've been survivors for a long time already, so when things start to go wrong and they begin to learn bits and pieces of what's happening in the wider world, their isolation and self-reliance turn into advantages. As far as the characters go, the protagonist, Evan, is an average Joe who still does some old school things like hunt to put food on the table for his family. And a lot of the other characters are like that. They're believable, ordinary folks. The realism of the characters in the plot is what makes the story tick. It's not an action-packed, unputdownable book. It's a slow burn that builds up to tense, suspenseful scenes with the frigid setting adding to this feeling of being closed off from everybody else. So the million-dollar question for this community becomes, are they going to isolate themselves completely or help other people? Next up is Moonfleet by John Mead Falkner. Published in 1898, this book shares some similarities with Treasure Island. It's a good old-fashioned adventure novel set in the English coast in the 18th century and features a teenager named John Trenchard as the protagonist. John soon finds himself on the wrong side of the law after investigating noises coming from a church's crypt, where a ghost is rumored to exist. The book then starts to check all the time-tested adventure boxes, from secret passages and hidden treasure to smugglers, shipwrecks, and prison escapes. There are also unexpected friendships and the looming threat of betrayal, lending a bit of weight to this book aimed at younger readers. But no matter your age, this tale from the 1800s will keep you at the edge of your seat. Hunters of the Red Moon by Marion Zimmer-Bradley.
The moon shall join your coalition.
A human named Dane Marsh and a handful of aliens are abducted from their home worlds, then forced to try and survive for a month on a far-off alien moon. But this isn't just surviving as in setting up a shelter and finding food and water. This is Hunger Games Battle Royale style survival. Dane and his alien friends have to try and remain alive for a month while being hunted as prey by a mysterious race of aliens. It's a pulpy sci-fi thriller with stereotypical characters, but entertaining nonetheless, thanks to a quick pace and lots of intrigue surrounding the aliens who abducted Dane Marsh and his newfound alien buddies. The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. A mother is forced to leave her baby in the woods as a sacrifice to an evil witch. But a good witch named Zan finds her and, after the child accidentally becomes enmagicked by soaking up moonlight, Zan decides to raise the child as her own daughter. The girl, named Luna, begins to grow up and display strong magical skills. Too strong, in fact, for Zan to control. So she places a spell on Luna, delaying the girl's access to magic until she turns 13. Meanwhile, a young man named Antane is beginning to see through the evils occurring in Luna's hometown, and Luna's imprisoned mother is trying desperately to reunite with her daughter. The way the past of this book's world is revealed is excellent, as is the descriptions of magic and memories. But it's not a 100% happy, feel-good story. There's a darkness to the magic in this book, one that threatens all our favorite characters, so it must be stopped by Zan, Luna, Antane, and others. Up next is Empire of the Summer Moon by S.C. Gwynne.
It's not a moon.
This ambitious historical narrative chronicles part of the Comanche tribe's history. It features compelling characters in the 1900s like Quanah Parker, his mom Cynthia Ann Parker, Peter Nakona, and Buffalo Hump, recalling the adversity they overcame and the legacy they left behind. Set in a time where white settlers were rapidly expanding westward, the two cultures bumped up hard against each other with neither wanting to budge. I feel like the author presented a fair, honest representation of life back then. There's no sugarcoating or romanticizing here. And it's far from a straightforward good guys versus bad guys story. There's nuance to this real-life tale of conquest and survival. Some of my favorite parts deal with the Comanche warriors, their skills, raids, and strategy. For instance, settlers feared the Comanche moon, when a full moon cast enough light for Comanche warriors to go on raids at night. And while the US built forts and sent troops to defend against this tribe, the Comanches didn't play by those rules. They just ride their horses past the forts or avoid the Texas Rangers, basically deciding for themselves when and where battles would be fought. If you're a history buff, this is a riveting read. It's packed with drama and introduces you to a chapter of the US that's sometimes overlooked. The next book I'm recommending is From the Earth to the Moon by Jules Verne. Published more than 100 years before the first lunar landing, this groundbreaking sci-fi novel imagines humanity's first journey to our celestial neighbor, the moon. While we all know that the cow jumped over the moon, this book's premise all starts with a trigger-happy American member of a gun club who thinks it's possible to shoot an object out of a cannon as far as the moon. Mathematical calculations and scientific musings follow, as does raising enough money to buy all the necessary ingredients for a giant space gun. Then, of course, a few brave souls want to board the moon-bound bullet and see our local satellite for themselves. Almost the entire novel builds up to firing the cannon and saying bon voyage to these three men, but their story does continue in the sequel, Around the Moon, which I've never got around to reading, but maybe one day. Clearly way ahead of his time, Jules Verne puts together a visionary science fiction novel. Sure, some of the ideas may seem ridiculous, but others weren't that far off. Overall, it's a good time with eccentric characters and gives us a glimpse into how humans of the past dreamt space exploration might go. And last on my list is The First Men in the Moon by H.G. Wells.
Twin moons.
This book is similar to the previous one I mentioned, featuring plenty of scientific speculation, but also a bigger dose of exploration and adventure. In it, a businessman befriends a physicist who has figured out how to defy gravity. But how should they use this amazing discovery? To become extremely wealthy or to visit the moon? Once they perfect the anti-gravity substance, they choose to board a spherical craft and set off toward the moon. I guess the thrill of exploration is just ingrained in humans, and these guys decide to go plunging into the unknown basically blind. Now we know what curiosity did to the cat, but what will it do to these two men? Well, they'll certainly have a tale to tell about the lunar landscape, climate, and rare metals, as well as the strange creatures and aliens they meet. But that's only if they can somehow get back home. Like the classic novel by Jules Verne, this one by H.G. Wells has aged, but not as poorly as you'd think. That's because it's still really entertaining. A blast from the past that tries to imagine what it would be like to walk around on the moon's surface. There you have it, 7 books I'm over the moon for. Remember to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if there are other good moon books that I should check out. I remember Robin at Bookspin had a nice list of lunar sci-fi books a few months ago as well, so be sure to check that out. I'll post that video link down below. And as always, happy reading.